The Toledo Rockets, you could make the great case that they were the best team in the Mid-American Conference last season, and even though they did not wind up with the conference championship at the end of the day, they were conference runner-ups. As a matter of fact, they had a wildly successful 2023 campaign, and they're looking to continue that success into 2024. But Jason Candle's group has some holes to fill. You got to replace a really good player at running back, really good player at quarterback, and some other holes on the defensive end. So my question to you out there, is Toledo going to be one of the better teams in the MAC this season? And can they claim a conference title? Well, you're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to prediction season, predicting all 134 teams in the FBS ranks of college football this summer. All the Power 4 teams are done, and we have less than 50 to go. If you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, and you want to have to hear what I say during the season as well, I mean, guys, football is being played next month. It's crazy. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and do anything else you can to help support the channel, whether that's watching this video, which I thank you for, help support me in more ways than you can even imagine, whether that's liking, commenting, sharing, or anything else. You help support what I do here on YouTube, and I greatly appreciate that. And now we dive on in to Toledo Rocket football in 2024. How do we do that, though? Well, I'm glad you asked. We're going to take a deep dive into the team's offense, then we'll dive into the defense, and then at the end of the day, we will go through the Toledo football schedule, and we'll give it one of the good old game-by-game preview and prediction. The game-by-game preview and predictions, my apologies. A couple more things before we do start, because right over here will be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And of course, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. So let's waste no more time. Let's get in to talking about the Toledo Rockets here in 2024. Got to start out with that quarterback room because, hey, it's the most important position on the field after all, and you lose a guy that I really like and a great dual threat quarterback from last season in Daquan Finn. He is off to go play in the Power 4 for the Baylor Bears. 2,657 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Throwing the football, also had 563 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground last season. You just look at his entire career at Toledo, and he's just gotten better and better every single season. And obviously, he, in my opinion, has earned the right to go play in the Power 4, where I think he's going to be a pretty good quarterback for Baylor. But again, you lose a very good player here in Daquan Finn. Definitely a very vital weapon, was very important to this offense. It's why the rushing attack was so potent. It's why the passing attack was as consistent as it was. Again, I won't ramble on anymore. You lose a really good player in Daquan Finn. Coming back in this quarterback room, though, and the guy you saw on screen not too long ago that I project will be your starting quarterback here in 2024, that's going to be Tucker Gleason. Last season did have some fairly solid playing time. 55 pass attempts, completed 28 of them for just over 50% completion percentage, 383 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 pick for Tucker Gleason last season. You go back to 2022 where he had 884 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 3 picks, but had a subpar completion percentage, had under 50% completion. It was hovering right around 48% last year, and not a guy that we've seen get out of the pocket and run a ton, but has flashed the ability here and there. Did have a 24-yard run last season. I project him to be the starter. I think he gives Toledo the best shot to win out of anyone else that is inside this quarterback room, but I also believe that especially if he can get the completion percentage up and he can make some better decisions with the football, cutting back on the interceptions, even though they, hey, aren't too high, but when you have a completion percentage like that, you're definitely more susceptible to interceptions than someone that would definitely have a higher completion percentage, obviously. So if he can get that completion percentage up, the decision-making, the accuracy can improve, I think you're going to get some really good quarterback play out of Tucker Gleason this season. You also do have John Allen Richter and RJ Johnson in this quarterback room that I think will be backing up Tucker Gleason this season. Running back room, well, you lose another very vital part to this offense from last season, and that was Penny Boone, a 1,400-yard rusher on the dot last season, 194 carries, 15 touchdowns last season. And for all you math nerds out there, yeah, 1,400 yards and sub 200 carries. He averaged over 7 yards a carry last season. He has gone over to now go play for, I believe, the UCF Knights. Was originally a Louisville transfer, decided to leave Louisville, and he has gone over to now play for UCF. You also are going to be losing Micah Kelly. He is off to go play for Samford. Depth piece in that running back room, only had 5 carries last season. So Penny Boone, the bigger loss there. Who returns in this running back room? Well, while Willie Shaw and Connor Wallenczak, I hopefully said that last name right, they both come back. Jacques Stewart will be the feature back for this team in 2024. 574 yards, 6 touchdowns for him last season. He averaged over 5 yards per carry, had 770 yards rushing back in 2022, where he again averaged over 5 yards per carry. Is he going to live up to the hype that, or I shouldn't say the hype, is he going to live up to what Penny Boone was able to do with this program? Remains to be seen. Does he have the potential to do it? Yes. I still really like Stewart, and he'll be one of the better running backs in the Mid-American Conference this season. Wide receiver room, well, you don't honestly lose too much here. Devin Maddox is gone due to graduation, but and I say only, this is actually some pretty solid production, had 141 yards and a touchdown last season. That's your really only notable loss in the pass catching room. As in the tight end room, well, you're going to remain pretty much intact this season. So pass catching room, let's talk about it for the Rockets this season. Jerjuan Newton is going to be back. He had 696 yards and 9 touchdowns on 52 catches for the team last season. Junior Vandeross will also be coming back, 664 yards and 4 touchdowns for him, so just slightly behind Newton in terms of catches and yardage. You also will be returning Larry Stevens, who had 272 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. Some depth pieces from last year in Jaden Dotton and Thomas Zyros. Hopefully, I'm saying that last name right. They both come back, and you get some freshmen coming in as well that honestly could play some pretty solid minutes. That's Tashi Braceville and Zymarion Lang. They both enter this program with hopes of getting in to this rotation in the wide receiver room here in 2024. Again, I already said your tight end room remains pretty much intact. Anthony Torres was the 3rd leading receiver for the team last year, 464 yards and 3 touchdowns. He'll be a really good piece of this team. Lenny Cool and CC Ezerim also come back. Now, your offensive line room, this is where you lose a ton of production from last season as well. You do lose a guy off to the NFL. David Wagugu, and that's the pronunciation that I have got at least. Feel free to correct me in the comment section below. He is off to now play on Sundays, I believe, with the Commanders, but I could be wrong on that. You also do lose Vinny Scurry to the transfer portal, and some guys did graduate off this offensive line from last year. Tyler Long, Nick Rossi, and Devin Rogers no longer on this team in 2024. Who is? Well, you do get Carter Foodie back, as well as Ethan Spoth, Stephen Gales, Garrett Schweibert, Jackson Cannon, and Ibrahim Traore all coming back to this offensive line room, while Jacob James, Alan Jones, and Maddox Marcotte all come in through the transfer portal. Believe that could be Marcotti as well. Again, whichever pronunciation happens to be correct, you are getting those guys in from the portal, and a combination of those, what did I say, 9 guys? Again, you have a lot of holes to fill in the offensive line. It'll be interesting to see who gets the starting roles on the line here in the trenches for the Rockets in 2024. So overall, while you do lose Daquan Finn, you lose Penny Boone, you lose a ton of production from last season on your offensive line, I still think this is going to be a pretty good offense. I like Tucker Gleason at quarterback. I like Jacques Stewart at running back. Obviously, they return pretty much every single notable piece to their wide receiver and tight end room from last season, especially for the offensive line that was really good last season. Again, helped the rush game get almost to 200 yards. They averaged over 5 yards per carry as a team last year, and they only allowed 11 sacks. If the offensive line pieces can fit in, Tucker Gleason can show a little bit more get a little bit more out of him in the quarterback position. Again, getting that completion percentage up and everything like that. You're looking at one of the better offenses in the Mid-American Conference, if not the best offense in the MAC in 2024. You go ahead and take a look at what the defensive side of the ball sees for Toledo, and it does lose its fair share of talent. Look, there are a ton of really talented players leaving a Toledo defense from last season that was one of the best in the Mid-American Conference. In fact, you could argue in ways it was one of the best out of the entire country. You do lose an NFL caliber player off the defensive line, and that is Judge Culpepper. He had 38 tackles and led the team with 9 sacks last season. Very impactful player. Yeah, you'll now see him playing on Sundays. Dallas Gant is also going to be off to the NFL. A really good linebacker for this team. Turned out, hey, he was their leading tackler last year, broke triple digits, 115 tackles, 1 sack, 2 pass defended, and 1 interception for Gant. You also do lose Terrence Taylor, who has utilized his eligibility and graduated, 36 tackles, 3.5 sacks for him. So the defensive front 7, what does it look like for Toledo in 2024? Well, besides Judge Culpepper, you really get a ton of pieces returning on this defensive line. DeAndre Ragan is going to be coming back. More of an edge rusher type. You could throw him in the linebacker spot as well, but I decided to put him in the defensive line. Pretty much any edge rusher I put in the defensive line category, but Ragan last season was the leading tackler among defensive linemen. He had 40 tackles and 5 sacks, which was second on the team last season. A ton of other guys with sack production come back as well. Darius Alexander, Kevon Butler, Deshaun Holt, Jeremiah Peters, Martez Pointer, Travion Ford, and I could list many other names there as well. Those are the guys that are going to get the most playing time on the defensive line. Again, some interior, some on the outside as edge rushers. Nonetheless, even though you lose your most impactful player, this is still going to be a really good defensive line here in 2024. Linebacker room, Daniel Bolden is coming back. Second leading tackler, was so close to breaking triple digits, had 94 tackles, 3 pass defended, give him half a sack as well. Made for a pretty good linebacker. He'll be one of the best in the MAC this season as he comes back. Jackson Barrow also will be coming back here to this team. 22 tackles, half a sack for him last season, while Damian Ollison will return as well. But you did get a couple pieces from the transfer portal to help cushion the blow of Dallas Gant and Terrence Taylor. Again, 2 pretty impactful players in the linebacker room from last season. You are getting Lance Dixon, who is coming over from West Virginia. That's a hugely impactful player here. Was fairly solid during his time with the Mountaineers. Great high upside guy that could see starting minutes in the linebacker room. And Kevon Sherman transfers in as well. Defensive back room, let's talk about it. Quinion Mitchell, who quietly, well, okay, maybe not quietly, he was a second-round pick after all, or no, first-round pick? Either way, really, really good player. Quinion Mitchell is off to the NFL, and I mean, he showed you pretty much everything that you needed to see out of a defensive back last season. Had 41 tackles, now only 1 interception, but did have 18 passes defended, which, obviously enough, did lead this team. So really, really good corner. I believe he's off to play for the Philadelphia Eagles, and you lose a stud in the cornerback room. Chris McDonald is also gone off this team. 8 passes defended, 2 interceptions, including a pick 6 and 34 tackles for him last season, while RJ Delancey, a guy who was pretty impactful here as well, was actually second on the team with 10 passes defended. He has gone through the transfer portal. So your top 1, 2, 3 guys in passes defended are gone from last season. Not to mention, you do lose a couple pieces out of the safety room. Nate Bauer is gone, and Zachary Ford are gone. Those are 2 top 5 tacklers from last season. They've run out of eligibility and both graduated, both of them over 60 tackles last year. So who comes back in the defensive back room this season? Well, Avery Smith does come back to hopefully be that lead corner here. Only 15 tackles for him. Nasir Bowers and Peyton Reasonover also come back. But when you lose that much depth in the cornerback room, you're going to have to go get a guy from the transfer portal. That's exactly what they did when they went ahead and brought in Zeke Blake. I believe a Youngstown State product that was one of the best defensive backs with the Penguins last season, and is going to look to be that here with the Rockets as well. Safety room, Maxon Hook does come back. He's going to be one of the better defensive backs on this team. 3rd leading tackler. Also led the team in picks with 3 interceptions last season. Emmanuel McNeil Warren, Andre Fuller, and Braden Alls also come back with no transfers, at least notable to me, coming into the safety room. And kickers are people too. We got to show them some love. Emilio Duran is back to do the punting duties, while Luke Pollock and Liam Quigley, I think both of them had at least some field goal attempts last season. They'll battle it out for the kicking duties again here in 2024. You lose a lot of impactful pieces on this defense from last season. Culpepper, Gant, Mitchell, McDonald, Delancey, Bauer, Ford, and even Taylor. There is really no guy that at least is leaving here on this board that did not have some great impact to this defense from last season. So you're losing a lot of production, but with the pieces that are here, I think Daniel Bolden's going to be a really good linebacker for you. I think Avery Smith out of the cornerback room, Maxon Hook out of the safety room are really talented players. Even though you lose your best player off the defensive line, I think you're still going to have one of the better ones in the MAC this season. And overall, even with all the talent leaving to the NFL through the portal, graduation, overall, offensively, defensively, Toledo is set up very, very well here in 2024. And it leads me into the schedule for the Toledo Rockets this season. Hey, any game at home is going to be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics or that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Rockets are going to win fairly easily, while any game in yellow is a close competitive game, but still see the Rockets being able to win. And of course, any game in red is a loss. I think the Toledo Rockets are going to start out with 2 wins to begin the college football season. They will beat Duquesne, again, an FCS level program. I believe they play another FBS team this season as well, but Toledo will start out their campaign with a win. That is a Thursday game, and my apologies, oh my goodness, Toledo should be able to beat Duquesne. That's exactly where the mix-up came from there. It's kind of mixed the 2 names together. They will beat UMass there as well. Now, UMass is coming into the MAC here, I believe, next season, and it is a program trending in the right direction under Don Brown. But again, even with all the talent Toledo does lose, they're still set up really well. A lot of good talent here. The Rockets beat the Minutemen in week 2. But then this is where the non-conference schedule ramps up for the Rockets this season. You have to go on the road and play the Mississippi State Bulldogs. And look, I'm not a big fan of the Jeff Lebby hire, and I'm not a big fan of his program here in 2024. You lose Will Rogers, you lose a lot of other very talented pieces offensively and defensively, but they still play in the SEC. They have SEC talent. You're going to be playing in an SEC stadium in Starkville. Those cowbells, man, do they get loud. I think Toledo's going to put up a pretty good fight here, but overall, I do think that Jeff Lebby, Mississippi State, are the better team in the end, and I do think that they get the win against the Toledo Rockets there in week 3. And I think Toledo strikes out on road on road non-conference games here as they go on the road and they lose to the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Now, this one is a true toss-up for me. I really could see this one going in either direction. Western Kentucky lost a lot of talented pieces from last season as well. They did lose their quarterback in Austin Reed, their leading receiver, and quietly one of the better receivers in the country in Malachi Corley. TJ Finley comes over from Texas State. If his offensive production can continue, that's a Western Kentucky offensive system that's going to be very, very dangerous. The defense does have to take some steps in the right direction, and it could be what ends up costing Western Kentucky this game, but I'm going to go with the team that has the home field advantage, and I still really like the Hilltoppers. I think they'll be one of the better teams in Conference USA this season. Again, a coin flip game that I'm just giving to the home side. So I think Toledo goes 2-2 through non-conference play before, in my opinion, you have a perfect time for a bye week here right before your conference opener and a rematch of the MAC championship game from last season. Toledo gets Miami at home. Now, the Redhawks, they are also going to be one of the better teams in the Mid-American Conference this season, led by their quarterback, who is coming back in Brett Gabbert. You return some really good pieces offensively, defensively, especially defensively. Matt Salopek, Ty Wise are probably the best 1-2 punch in the MAC conference in, again, the linebacker position. That, or you could even make the argument that they're one of the best you'll see across the entire nation. Both of them broke triple-digit tackles last year, and this is going to be a really tough game for Toledo to go and win, especially with all the production that they did lose. But the Glass Bowl is, again, a tough place to play in the Mid-American Conference, and I think there are gaps that you can attack here with the Miami Redhawks. There are some things to where, again, especially with the talent that they do lose, if Brett Gabbert can't stay healthy, how do they replace Rashad Amos, who leaves out of the running back room? There are still some questions to answer, and while both of these teams probably could end up meeting yet again in the Mid-American Conference Championship game, much like what happened last year, I think Toledo gets the regular season win. They beat Miami at home to start out conference play. You're going to go on the road here, and I think Buffalo puts up a fight, but I don't think the Bulls are going to be that great of a team this season. They weren't that great last year, and I don't think much is going to change with Buffalo here entering 2024. They do have some pieces coming in through the portal and wide receiver, some depth pieces coming in on the defensive side, but I don't know how much they improved from last season. Probably one of the lower teams in the MAC. Road win for Toledo. However, I do not think that they get a road win against the Northern Illinois Huskies. I do think you trip up here, and Northern Illinois is going to be able to pull off the win. The Huskies are a team I really like out of the Mid-American Conference again this season. Ethan Hampton is going to be playing quarterback for that team this season. Antario Brown comes back at running back. You return some really good pieces at wide receiver, including Trayvon Rudolph, a player that I really, really like. Your defense is loaded with seniors, and a road game here, the Huskies usually a pretty solid team in the Mid-American Conference, and Thomas Hammock is one of the better coaches, you could say, in this conference, and I think that is going to be a loss for the Toledo Rockets on the road, and kind of a surprise upset thing here. The rivalry game here, it's the battle along some highway, I forget what highway that is, but Toledo gets Bowling Green at home. Now, look, Bowling Green is not a team anymore that just sits at the bottom of the Mid-American Conference. They're actually a really solid team with some really good talent. Connor Bazelak is a good quarterback that they have. Terrion Stewart is a really good running back, and they're bringing in some wide receiver transfers to help give a boost to this wide receiver room, bringing in a lot of defensive back transfers, and I actually really like this matchup for the Bowling Green Falcons, and I'm going to predict a little upset here. Rivalry game. I know it's a road game for Bowling Green, but crazy things happen in action sometimes, and I think Toledo gets upset here. So through their first 8 games, they go 4-4, including a loss to their rival, the Bowling Green Falcons. But then as you continue on down the path, I think Maction fortunes get a lot better for the Rockets here. Maction does not start until week 12 for them. They get week 10 on a normal schedule on a Saturday, where I think they will beat Eastern Michigan. A lot gone off that team from last season, and a game that I think Toledo should just be able to win. Then MACtion does start after their second bye week of the year. I believe this is a Tuesday game against the Central Michigan Chippewas, a game that I do think they will win. A lot of good talent there on Central Michigan. They'll be a solid team out of the MAC this season, not as talented as Toledo. In my opinion, that is a win for the Rockets. Now, Ohio, the Bobcats. This is another tricky one because I like a lot of the talent that Ohio has, but obviously they're losing a lot of pieces from last season, much like Toledo is. Starting running back C.A. Bangura, gone. I believe there are also some other solid pieces in the running back room gone as well. You're going to be losing Rourke at the quarterback position, some really good pieces on defense, and overall, I just think Toledo's going to be able to get them here. Another MACtion game that they're able to win, and then week 14, final game of the season. I just don't think Akron's going to be any good this year. That's a win for the Toledo Rockets, bringing me to an 8-4 record for Toledo here this season. 9-3 is definitely also very achievable, while I think 10-2 is the ceiling for this team. Probably a loss to Mississippi State, probably at least one loss in conference play. There are going to be a lot of good teams in the MAC this season, but Toledo, even with all they lost, are still set up very, very well. Jason Candle came back to be that head coach. I think he's the best head coach in the MAC, and Toledo could be on their way to another MAC championship game. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and we will talk about the Marshall Thundering Herd in my next video. Goodbye.